You needed to see the accountability that the head of sales you reported to had as they try to defend the numbers or not. You needed to see the joy and the brother and sisterhood that the sales team form and this united front as we pursue quota. You needed to understand that selling is about more than a price.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there, welcome to episode 246 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest today is Darryl Praill, CMO of VanillaSoft. Darryl, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Bernie, I feel like I'm with marketing royalty today, and I'm thrilled to be here on the show with you.
Well, funny, I was going to say that about you. You kind of stole my line.
Now we know we're two marketers, right? There we go. That's good.
Well, Darryl, we are here to talk about something that is a first for this podcast. I have never, in 245 episodes, this is 246, I've never discussed the topic of the career journey of the modern CMO. So that's what I'm excited to discuss with you today. But hey, before we do that, I always like to ask my guests for a little background, little introduction to your company, VanillaSoft, and your role at the company.
Fair enough. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. This is like a test. How good is his messaging, right? There we go. So, Darryl Praill. I'm the CMO with a company called VanillaSoft. You can check us out at vanillasoft.com, just like it sounds. And what we are is we're a sales engagement platform. Essentially, if you think of your typical modern marketing and stack, you have marketing automation and you have CRM, and we sit in between. And we take all those MQLs and we allow your sales development reps, your inside sales teams to actually engage with those marketing qualified leads with the right persistency and the right cadence across all the channels, social, email, phone, so that you can actually connect with them and actually sales qualify them before you pass them along to the account executive. And if you use our platform, as opposed to the traditional approach of a CRM, you can expect to triple your pipeline contribution, dramatically lower your cost per lead with no additional investment. And it's simply a function of making sure that the sales development reps actively pursue every single lead as much and as many times and as many channels as necessary to turn those MQLs into SQLs. And we make sure that happens. And that's what we do.
You passed fantastic messaging. In fact, spoken more like a salesperson than a marketing person. But I want you to take that as a compliment, because I think it's a great segue into our whole conversation today. You know, Darryl, as you know, marketing has evolved over the past even just few years, but certainly over decades. The role of the head of marketing, really the whole title of Chief Marketing Officer, that is something that's just evolved in recent years. And so has the career path for that modern Chief Marketing Officer. So let's get into it. Let's begin with, what is the role of a Chief Marketing Officer in your view?
So in my view, and my bias, full disclosure, my bias is from a business to business as opposed to business to consumer.
Mine too.
All right. So fair enough. I believe the CMO has probably two primary and maybe one secondary role. And the primary one is, first and foremost, lead demand generation. In other words, your job is to contribute to the pipeline in a real, tangible, measurable, substantive way. Number two, your job is to create awareness of the solution and the brand so that people will talk about you, whether that be through influencers, analysts, press, social proof, review sites. So awareness, so that you're a known element and it reduces the perception of risk for somebody who's considering investing in you. So those are the two, in my mind, those are the two that are first, 1A, 1B. Then it gets a little more organizational. So I believe that the second one was as a spokesperson. I think every CMO should be able to articulate what their solution does, respond to any objections, and engage subject matter experts in a thoughtful discourse such that you can represent the company using your marketing skills. If you can't do that, then you need to invest the time to understand your market, your product, and your ideal customer. You need to be a respectable, earnest, credible spokesperson, as opposed to, oh, they're just the marketer. It's about respect. So that's kind of the 1A, 1B, and 2. Beyond that, then it gets a little more open-ended and it involves your organization and how you're structured. In many organizations, I think you're also a big contributor to the product vision and the product roadmap. So that would be the last one. And that really depends. If you're a R&D, product management centric company, then the CMO will never have that role. But I believe if you're a market-facing, responsive, customer-driven CMO and organization, then you should absolutely have input into the product direction and roadmap.
Okay. So I think that's a great segue. I like your two primary and your one secondary. So I'm in total agreement with you on that. I think it's a good segue to this topic I want to discuss with you around why we even have this role called the Chief Marketing Officer. I mean, I grew up, Darryl, in the days of you were a director of marketing, and then if you earned your stripes, you became a VP of marketing, and then maybe in your company there was an SVP or an EVP of marketing. But this role of the Chief Marketing Officer, I mean, let's face it, that's the C-suite. That's in there with the CEO, the CFO. So why do you think we have a C-suite level marketing executive now?
That's a really good question. And like you, because I am of a certain vintage, it was director, VP, maybe senior VP, and that was it. If you were at the executive roundtable, the C-suite, you were a junior and your input was cute, but it was just it was just an input, right? And you were always trumped by your sales counterpart. Whatever the sales counterpart said was gospel. And I think the reason that has changed is manifold. I think there's been a maturation that people understand better the role of marketing today than they did once upon a time.
Okay.
There's that. But I think what we've seen is a couple of things happen. First off, we've seen the transition organizationally to where the head of marketing, or the marketing department, if you will, owns the technology stack 9 times out of 10. It's no longer the domain of the CIO, if you even have a CIO or a CTO, or the IT team. It is marketing that has the operational revenue stack, the sales and marketing stack. And that happened out of necessity because IT was never being responsive. And then what that allowed marketing to do was innovate and add things like CRM and marketing automation. And that resulted in more lead flow, and that resulted in more deals. And for whatever reason, sales seem to gladly give that to the marketing team because they're busy selling.
Right.
All right. And so suddenly the marketing guys became indispensable because no one else knew the stack. And when they needed to report the numbers and they needed to understand the trend lines, it was always the marketing team that was able to speak to it. And they understand the buyer and the buyer's journey. It was the marketing guy. So it went from being a sales organization or maybe in a CEO or a C-level suite where they had a gut. They had a feeling, this is what our customers want. And marketers became data.
There you go. I was waiting for that, Darryl.
You're waiting for that.
Great lead into that. Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
They became data scientists, and they were able to finally say, no, this is our customer. These are the channels. These are the industries, the verticals. These are the messages that are converting. And suddenly the gut of the sales or the C-level suite no longer mattered because we had definitive proof. And then they would leverage that, through time, saying, well, then, it became, oh, okay, so what do you think we should do? Because I don't understand the data. You know the data. So what you had was this repetitive cycle of I think we should do this or go into this market or do this or change our messaging or change our sales approach. And we're going to A/B test it. And we're going to, again, continue to be data scientists. And we can show that, in fact, Marketing has gone from being this black art that nobody understood to being a very structured, methodical, repeatable, transparent, measurable discipline. And that is what the CEO loves. That is what the chief financial officer and chief operating officer love. That is what your investors love. And that is what your board loves. They want real answers to hard problems. And the marketer got that. And I think because of that, they have become part of the C-suite.
That's a great answer, Darryl. And again, I'm in violent agreement with all the points that you made. And I think it, once again, is a great segue to where I wanted to go next. And that is the relationship between marketing and sales. And as you know, Darryl, because you and I are of similar vintage, I love that word, chosen wisely. But for decades, marketing and sales have been a little bit like cats and dogs. You gave some really great reasoning why sales has really kind of buddied up with marketing in recent years around the marketing tech stack and the scientific approach to it. So as it relates to marketing and sales, what do you think about the modern CMO, their level, his or her level of understanding of sales? And I'm going to kind of bunch a few questions into one and just let you process it all in real time because I know you're good at that. So the level of understanding of sales and even having sales experience. And here you are, Darryl, as a CMO of a software company. You yourself have sales experience, as do I. So what do you think about the modern CMO and their level of sales tenacity, including empathy, which includes experience?
So you're right. There's a lot in that.
You're up for it, I know.
In no particular order, maybe working backwards. Empathy, if you don't have empathy, just bail on being a marketer. Just full stop. All right. End of story. Because rule number one is you got to put yourself in your buyer's shoes. And if you can't do that, no amount of reading about it is not going to help you. You just cannot understand how to connect with them. Boom. So where do I start in this? I firmly, emphatically believe that a successful senior marketing leader needs to have, at one point in their career, carried a bag. You didn't need to be in leadership, but you needed to be exposed to leadership. So what does that mean? It's really straightforward. You need to have worked a phone or send an email, and you need to have received rejection. You needed to refine your message on the fly. You needed to have that quota staring you in the face every day, every week, every month, every quarter, knowing it reset to zero the next period and it started all over again. You needed to see the challenge and the pain that your colleagues went through as they missed quota. You needed to see the accountability that the head of sales you reported to had as they try to defend the numbers or not. You needed to see the joy and the brother and sisterhood that the sales team form and this united front as we pursue quota. You needed to understand that selling is about more than a price. You need to be involved in that because you're going to work, as you just said, alongside these people. You own the top half, top 2/3 of the funnel as a senior marketing team, and your sales colleague owns the bottom half, or the bottom third of the funnel. And you need to understand how they're motivated. You need to understand how they think. You need to preempt their objections or their requests so that you can work together. And if you don't do that, you're bound to fail. That's my strong, fervent belief. You have to have some experience. And I would encourage any marketer who wants to be a senior marketer, a CMO, a VP of marketing one day to go on, call it an internship. And you see this quite often. Go work the phones for a month or 3, a quarter, and then go back to your job in marketing. And you're going to see the world through a different lens. You're going to understand how they're incented, how they're motivated. And you're going to understand that they're not all difficult. Their behaving, their actions, their motives, what they do is a byproduct of who they are, the role they serve, and how they're incented to behave.
So I'll add one other to what you said. Again, agree with everything you said. And you and I both carried a bag. And in my case, I carried a bag and I had some sales leadership experience as well before pivoting over into marketing. And one thing for sure, Darryl, is that when you're in a marketing role, especially in a marketing leadership role, and you have sales experience, you command minute one a level of respect from sales that you don't necessarily get or earn if you don't have that sales experience. And that's because you haven't walked in the shoes of that salesperson experiencing everything you just described so passionately and so eloquently. So I think that is important because we have to work together, right? We have to work with sales. And if there isn't that level of respect already in place and it's difficult to earn, then there's this wall, if you will, that has existed for a long, long time that oftentimes cannot be overcome.
And you make an excellent point, Bernie, which says you've got the experience, of course. You're spot on. The funny part is, I can't believe I missed it, the rank and file respect, as well as the sales leadership, but the whole sales organization, if they don't respect you and think you add value, they're going to tune out whatever marketing initiatives you have, no matter how brilliant or spot on they are. There has to be a mutual respect. Everything I said was about understanding the sales team and respecting them, but you're spot on. They need to respect you. They need to know that you have firsthand experience what they're going through and you get it.
We'll be right back with the rest of my conversation with Darryl Praill from VanillaSoft. Hey, if video is part of your marketing mix, and it probably is, I want to encourage you to consider attending Bright Cove Play May 14th through the 16th, 2019. You can learn more at play.brightcove.com. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the event. This is the 9th annual event for Bright Cove Play. It's Bright Cove's annual event. The content is awesome. You won't find this content anywhere by searching online. And when you attend Bright Cove Play, you'll leave the event with a solid understanding of how organizations similar to your own are tackling video challenges and moving their business forward. Now, whether you want to learn video strategies or network with your peers or dive into video technology, Play has you covered. And it could be a chance for you and I to meet in person because I'm going to be there all 3 days. In fact, I'm speaking on May 15th at 11 a.m. on how salespeople can use video to engage the modern buyer. Now, you can save 20% at registration. Just visit play.brightcove.com. And when you register, use the code PlayPC2019. All one word. Again, go to play.brightcove.com, and to save 20%, use the code PlayPC2019. Let's talk a little bit about the role of hiring and retaining staff by CMOs. You used the phrase data scientist. Does the CMO need to be a data scientist, or does the CMO need to have a data scientist on their staff? And I realize it's a very general question, Darryl, because you might have a staff of 50 if you're in a big company, or you might have a staff of 2 if you're in a small company, and then there's some people out there that are there. They are the marketing department. So it runs that whole spectrum, right? But in general, let's assume it's an organization that has staff. You're a CMO with staff. How does the CMO strategize on how to build and retain that staff?
All right, so a couple questions, the data scientist question and the retention question. So on the data scientist question, I believe the CMO does not, and probably almost should not be the data scientist. It should be an input of multiple inputs to your decision making and your strategy. But I think you need an individual who can focus on it because there is so much data from so many sources, digital, print, web, it goes on. And the tools are not always the most intuitive. You're better off to let a subject matter expert master that craft and share with you on a regular basis interesting observations, whether that be opportunities, hey, we're missing out on this market and it looks great, or it be consequences, hey, our conversion rate sucks. So I think you need a data scientist, if you will, on staff. It doesn't mean it's a full-time job, but it does mean it's a big part of their job. I'm a big believer in that. And the analogy I make to that is sports. Every sports team now, hockey, football, baseball, all have advanced stats, but they're not making decisions solely on what the advanced stats say. The general managers and the coaches also know the nuances, the emotional elements, the psychological elements of the players, of the dynamics going on in the game that the stats are unable to track and measure and create recommendations on. So all of those become inputs, but decisions made in an absence of stats is a mistake and you will fail. So it's an input. That's what I believe. Retention, a couple things, and I'm very passionate about this. I believe you communicate openly and transparently with respect to whoever is on your team at any level. I have the C in my title, but I take the intern and I treat them the same as I do anybody else because we're all people and we all put our pants on one leg at a time. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I believe personally, I am responsible for my team's career progression, which more than likely will not be with the company I'm employed with right now. It is my personal objective to make sure I do everything to increase their CV, to increase how appealing they are, how attractive they are, and increase their vision of the big picture, because I want them to be a VP or a CMO one day who looks back and said, the biggest impact anybody had in my life was my boss, Darryl. That's what I want. Next thing is loyalty. They're going to have good days and bad days. And if you've got to create an environment where they can be forthright and honest with you, whether they're having issues at home, they're having issues with the kids, with the marriage, they're having issues with income, you got to have that honesty and you got to have their back sometimes. It doesn't mean if they're failing, you don't have to be a boss, but you have to be flexible. And the last thing I believe is treat them like the big boys and girls they are. So if that means you're going to have to work home for a day or two of the week, childcare, whatever it might be. Listen, I'm not measuring you on what you do, were you busy for those 8 hours at home? I'm measuring you on your outcomes. At the end of today, this is what I need to have happen. If you do that, I'm a happy camper and we can work together. And if you do all that, they will go above and beyond for you every single time because they feel like you get them, you consider it, you've got their back, and it is a team. And really, the sports analogy comes through again, right? Is you bond in the good times as well as the bad times. And you call each other out behind closed doors. And you have an honest talking to amongst all the players on the team. But then when you're public facing, when you're outside and talking to the rest of the company, it's a united front. And I think if you do that, your life will be good and your employees will love you and you'll have above average performance from them.
Well said. So you're a humble guy. So I'm going to do a little bragging for you. You posted recently on LinkedIn some accolade that you won, some recognition as CMO, and you made it about your team. You made the point of I could not receive any recognition if it were not for my team. This is really recognizing my team. And I thought that was terrific, brilliant. It was also very authentic. And so I commend you for that. So you're not just saying this on a podcast, you're walking the walk.
Well, thank you very much. And it's true. Funny story there, Bernie. We did a webinar today and it was a fun experience because it was a webinar about webinars. I had my whole team, there was not my whole team, but we had my webinar crew. There was 5 of us on this webinar from all different cities, all video, all live. And then for 4 of them, it was the first time they've been in front of the camera. I'm always in front of the camera. It was their first time. And when we wrapped up the whole thing, I'm being a softie here. I wrapped it up by saying, guys, I was so excited to share this all with you today. And I was most excited for you to meet my team. And my voice cracked. And I had to collect myself and I say, see you later. Bye-bye. We're out of here.
That's awesome.
And my team was classy. They're like, nice ending, Darryl, but they didn't embarrass me. But then we had so much social media feedback about that transparency. And that's how I feel about my team. I know my team has my back. And, I'll be honest with you, there are times when I am asking the impossible. Simple example, I was in an executive meeting today. They wanted to know an answer. It wasn't a simple answer. Going back to data scientists, boom, I'm on Slack. We need this answer. They dropped everything. They got it to me 5 minutes later. That's what you do in a team. You have loyalty, you help each other out. And that makes it a fun place to work. And if you don't do that, why don't you do that? I guess is the question I would have for you.
No, I agree. All right. Well, before we jump on this podcast, I did forget to ask you to bring your crystal ball. So I'm going to ask you to just go find it somewhere nearby and give us your thoughts on how do you see the role of the CMO evolving over the coming years, and you can define whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that is very crystal ballish, but you pick the time horizon, but how do you see the role of the CMO evolving?
Okay, so you're right. You didn't prep me on this one. So this is completely 100% off the top of my head. My gut, and this is going to be counterintuitive, and not a lot of people are going to like this, is I see the CMO role still being a C-level job. I don't see that going away anytime soon at all. But what I see the footprint expanding. So I see more and more of sales coming under the role of the CMO and the marketing team, because the buyers are more and more self-educating and making their own decisions without talking to somebody. Yes, I know in complex enterprise sales, you have to talk to somebody. I get that. But in many areas, many industries, the buyers are becoming so savvy that the sales part is really more of an order taking part than a sales part. I think you're seeing that already. A couple of years ago, the sales development teams always reported to sales. And today, I believe the current stat is 1/3 are reporting to sales. I firmly believe within 5 years' time, you're going to see that to be 2/3, if not more. So I see marketing moving more so into a role of chief revenue officer. If I had to say what's the split, I would probably say it's 90-10 today, sales still being the CRO. I see that becoming 50-50 very, very soon. The other part is I see a lot more marketers moving into the CEO role. So again, the historical path was a lot of VP of sales, would eventually become CEO. Because marketing owns the stack and they know the processes and they know the data, and they have the majority of the buyer's journey, I firmly believe they're the ones who are most logical to go into the CEO's position. And because they're all about messaging and connecting with various audiences, they can paint a message, they can paint a vision for both their employees as well as their investors. So I think the CMO's journey is not done. It's going to continue to mature. It's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to increase in responsibility and opportunity.
Well, folks, you heard it here first. The CMO, the CEO of the future is today's CMO. Love that answer, Darryl. So that brings us to the point in our podcast where I'm going to do kind of a recap of the things we discussed here today. I'm going to ask you to listen to my recap and then just give me any other talking points or fill in any holes and anything that maybe I'll jog your memory on that we didn't discuss. And then we'll ask you for all your contact information, Darryl, so my listener can connect with you. Then we'll bring this episode to a wrap. So we began our conversation with a brief introduction to your company, VanillaSoft. You are a sales engagement platform. You really are kind of in between CRM and marketing automation that allows salespeople to engage with MQLs so that they can have the right cadence across all the channels and triple their pipeline contribution. That is awesome. And we talked about the role of the CMO. What is it? You said there's two primary roles and one secondary, primary being lead generation, demand generation, contributing to pipeline. That's one of them. Second one being creating awareness for the brand and for the solutions, and then to generate buzz and discussion among the people in the marketplace, all the stakeholders, customers, buyers, analysts, etc., so that it really reduces the risk for the brand. And then you said the secondary role is to be a spokesperson for the brand, to be able to engage, to be able to respond, and to be a subject matter expert. And that, of course, takes a lot of marketing skills and communication skills. You need to understand the brand's ideal customer profile, and then also be a contributor to the strategic vision of the product and the product roadmap, depending on the company and the role, where you are in the organization. Then we talked about the CMO in terms of how do they become a CMO. We talked about in years past, it was director and VP level. And usually what the head of marketing said was trumped by sales, because sales really was sort of a higher rung in the ladder. But in recent years, marketing has matured. Companies have really begun to understand the role of marketing, mainly because as technology has evolved, the transition of marketing owning the technology stack in most companies has really given marketing sort of a leg up within the C-suite. Marketing now owns both the marketing and the sales stack, mostly around CRM and marketing automation. And so sales has basically allowed marketing, if you will, if you want to use that phraseology, to say, hey, marketing, you own the technology. We're over here busy selling. Just optimize it for us to make our number. along the way, marketing has become really good at understanding the buyer's journey. And of course, that takes a lot of data, and marketing has become very data driven to be able to define who are the right customers, what are the right channels, what are the right messages, what are the right conversion points, calls to actions, etc. And really, marketers have leveraged this concept of being or having data scientists on their team so that they can be very structured in their approach to marketing, very methodical, very transparent. And of course, all of that translates to the CEO, the CFO, and the board really saying, hey, marketing, we like what you're doing. Keep doing it. You deserve a seat at the table. So that brought us to the conversation around the role of sales in the modern CMO. We talked about how there must be empathy for sales. The marketer, the modern CMO, must be able to understand exactly who the buyer is. And ideally, the CMO should be someone who's experienced quota and the pressure of quota and presenting and closing and hearing no and the accountability and just all the things that go into the brotherhood and sisterhood, as you said, of in pursuit of the quota. That empathy really needs to be there. And when it's there, sales really respects the marketing leader because the marketing leader has walked in their shoes. Then we talked about how does the modern marketer hire and retain? And you said that, well, first of all, you need inputs, a lot of data inputs, and the CMO shouldn't be the person owning all the data, well, owning it, but from the standpoint of getting input from people on their team. So you need a data scientist role, whether it's full-time or not, so that he or she can give you the input so that you can take that data and then integrate that with other non-data or what I'll call qualitative insights and then use them together to make decisions. And then we talked about the importance of retaining staff. And you said you've got to communicate openly. You've got to communicate respectfully, treat everyone equally. Everyone is responsible for contributing to this team's success, and really also show responsibility for the progression of the career path of the people on your team. Help them understand the vision of the big picture and really develop loyalty with your team. Protect them when they need it. And then, of course, treat them as adults and measure them on outcomes and not what they did in the last 30 minutes. And then we talked about your crystal ball. Where do you see the CMO evolving over the coming years? And you said certainly going to stay at the C level. You see the footprint expanding with more accountability for sales and sales coming underneath the marketing role. That's because the buyers are most understood by marketers, and the buyers are making decisions with less and less sales input. So the marketing role really is taking on more of that sales development team. You said it's about 1/3 today, and probably, increasing in percentage of how many companies actually own the sales development role. And you really said, Darryl, that you see the CMO role moving more toward the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer role. And eventually you're going to see more CMOs moving into the CEO role because they understand the buyer's journey and have all the data inputs to understand what's in the best interest of the buyer and what's in the best interest of the company to reach and engage that buyer to meet short and long-term goals. I did a little paraphrasing there, but I'll end my summary there, Darryl, and ask you for any thoughts that you'd like to add.
The only thought I had was I said a lot.
You did.
Wow. I'm impressed with what you just did. Holy smokes. Well done, man.
All right. So let's leave my listener with your contact information as well as a shout out to your podcast. We have not mentioned that yet. So how can people connect with you on all the socials and your podcast as well?
All right. So we'll work backwards. So that podcast is Inside Sales. You have to say it that way. InsideSales.com. You find it right there. And if you have a sales development team or you're involved in sales development, you would love that. Beyond that, it's straightforward. You can find me on LinkedIn all the time, but I'm also on Twitter, of course, Instagram. But LinkedIn is really my go-to. So it's Darryl Praill, DarrylPraill. And that's as simple as that. Do a Google search, you'll find it. And please don't be shy. Follow me, connect with me, comment, share, argue with me, engage with me. I like to connect with people.
And you are also opinionated, and that kind of made its way into your Twitter handle, huh?
It did. I have opinions. Twitter handle is OHPINION, the number 8TED. And I'm pretty straightforward. I do bring opinions. You don't have to agree with them, though. Just have a take. Have a take that's reasoned and informed and educated. And I got all the time in the day for you.
Darryl, this conversation was everything that I expected it to be and more. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thank you.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at Vengreso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengreso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at Vengreso.com. And that's one S in Vengreso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.